Madeleine Fraley endured the painful loss of her husband Larry to frontotemporal dementia. The couple met as teenagers and spent 53 years married before Larry's passing. They have one son, Jeffrey. She offers poignant and insightful observations for caregivers of those with dementia. Madeleine retired in 2004 after nearly 40 years in the healthcare field, the last 29 years as a PA in cardiovascular surgery. Here are her insights regarding her catastrophic experience and loss. What differentiates frontotemporal dementia from Alzheimer's disease?
That's an excellent question, because dementia is an overview of multiple different entities. So Alzheimer's disease is the most common form of dementia. Like cancer, consider cancer. There's breast cancer, lung cancer, bone cancer, brain cancer. We're talking about dementia being the overview of multiple entities, Alzheimer's being the biggest, vascular dementia, Lewy Body Dementia, frontotemporal dementia, chronic brain injury. There's so many different forms of dementia. So frontotemporal dementia, the hallmark of that is damage to the frontal lobe and the temporal lobe of the brain.
What should you do first?
You know, it's really critically important that we all have our legal documents in order. It is so important that we have our power of attorney for both medical and financial, as well as living will, and even your will. It is so critically important, and there are so many of us adults who don't have those documents available. Number one, while your loved one still has capacity to designate who they would want to be their overseer of their finances or medical issues, you need to get that done first. It's really critically important.
What were the telltale signs leading up to your husband Larry's diagnosis?
You know, this is very interesting. The symptoms came on so subtly. His dementia, as I call it now at this point in our lives, was very slow in progressing, and it ended up that I was covering for him in many areas, even organizing his music when he was playing in a band and so on. But as that also was occurring, in addition, he would come home from a meeting or an episode of visiting with somebody, and he would give me some strange scenario about what happened. And eventually what truly happened is when we were on vacation in 2012 and we came back from that vacation, he was telling all of his friends at church about how the assassins were chasing us and how the Delta Force was summoned and they dropped bombs on the assassins. And this is an amazing story and he truly believed it. He truly, truly believed it. We escaped the assassins and ended up, but that was the hallmark of my realization that he had something going on that was incredibly strange. Nothing I could understand at the time, other than I knew I was kind of covering for his lack of cognitive abilities as far as early onset dementia. But then we had these scenarios. the scenarios went on and on from that point. Jet helicopters are landing in our front yard. Hurry up, Madeleine, get dressed. And I would go to I think to myself, well, what do you wear when the jet helicopters land in your front yard? He would give me all kinds of scenarios of drowning in the Bering Sea, and every time his nose ran, it was the water from the Bering Sea coming out. On and on, these delusions continued daily, constantly, and so that was the hallmark of his debilitating disease. It was quite difficult.
What expectations should a loving caregiver be prepared for?
This is an important point. We need to learn as we go. Every one of us has a unique story. Larry and my story is different from anybody else's story. And so because of the uniqueness, we are learning as the dementia progresses how to manage the situation, and that is critically important. One of the things I express is that we should never make a pact with our loved one that we're never going to put them into a care facility. I think that is a very dangerous thing, because over the years, you have no idea what you, the caregiver, are going to be able to tolerate, to deal with, or your health may be impacted, and that will make a difference. The other thing I think is really important is that you have a plan B. Who's going to care for your loved one if you cannot? And there are instances where you cannot do it, and you need to have a plan B. So I think that's really important. The other thing I express often is that as a caregiver, we need to find the joy in every day. Sometimes that's really challenging because the days can be stressful and frustrating. But to look, and even just like, let's just say it's raining outside, it's gray, and your loved one is, doing whatever they're doing, and you look at your window and you see the little rivulets of water running down. Remember that. You write that down in your journal. I journaled through Larry's illness, and it was really important for me to be able to do that. But look for the little signs of joy. It's the butterfly that lands on the flower in the garden. Notice that, and take it into your whole being, because this journey is so challenging and so frustrating and so stressful that you, the caregiver, needs to be able to get that little moment of peace, of even meditation. I journaled during Larry's illness, and it was really helpful to me because I would write those lovely things down, but I would also scream into my journal my frustrations and my stress, and then that was a way to just get it down on the page and have it off my shoulders.
What is a typical good day?
A typical good day is when you have no surprises that are negative in your working with your person with dementia. It is so challenging that having a day that runs smoothly is a good day. I try to predict what things my husband Larry would get into and to be proactive. I did things like putting alarms on my exterior doors so that when he opened the door, I would go to see where he was going so that he wouldn't wander away. I put locks on some of my cabinets in the kitchen, locking up my knives, even vitamins I locked up, because those would be enticing to somebody with progressive dementia who might think that they were candy or something that they should just eat the whole bottle. And so it was really important for me. I took the knobs off my stove and locked out the oven, which was a computerized system that I could do. I could lock out the oven, took the knobs off the stove, but the little nubbins that were still there, Larry was able to hold on to that with his fingers and twist it enough to get the burner on. I mean, that is so scary. You try and do the best you can. You try and be proactive. In order to not have him go out into the garage, I had a safety lock, a keyed lock, put on the door from the house to the garage so he couldn't get out there. When I got out of my car, I locked the doors of the car so that when we went out to go for a drive somewhere, if he went to the driver's side, oh, the car is locked. And then I'd say, oh, well, let's go around and see if the other door is open. And he would walk around. At that point, I would unlock the doors and he would get into the passenger side and I would be in the driver's side. And that's one way that I was able to not have him driving. The other thing I did, and driving is a huge issue with these folks, they always want to drive until somebody, a police officer or a doctor says, no, you cannot drive any longer. The spouse or a loved one, it doesn't have that same authority. I was able to hide Larry's keys, his car keys. I hid them. Now, I hid them under the mattress in the bed. He didn't know. I said, when you find your keys, you can drive. And, and that solved the problem. From that point on, he gave up trying to find his keys, and I found him a few years later.
Caregiver, take care of yourself.
That tends to be a mantra. Caregiver, you have to take care of yourself. It's absolutely true, but it is one of the most difficult things to do. And it is, you are spending 100% of your time every day caring for somebody with progressive dementia. And it is the vigilance you have to maintain is very stressful. Let me tell you something. Statistically, 41% of caregivers of people with dementia die before their loved one dies. Now that goes back to what we were talking about earlier, having a plan B. If 41% of us will pass away before our loved one, we need a plan B. And this goes back even further to the fact, don't make a pact with your loved one that you will never put them in a care facility. That is, always say, I will assure that you will have the best care possible. Don't make a pact other than, I will always assure you have the best care possible.
Could you have prepared yourself differently?
Maybe. I don't know. I can't see into the future. I had no idea that my husband would have the disease of dementia, frontotemporal dementia. I had no idea. His mother passed away with vascular dementia. She had many strokes. But how in the world could I have predicted that Larry would be suffering from something totally different from vascular dementia? One thing I have to say is that no matter how you prepare and how vigilant and diligent you are, they are still going to surprise you. So I am driving. We're in the traffic circle, driving slowly around the traffic circle. Let me say thankfully, as Larry yells, "That's the wrong way," and grabs the steering wheel and pulls it to the right. And I slam on the brakes. I kill the engine. I'm stuck in the middle of the traffic circle with people behind me. I never would have predicted that. All I could picture was going 60 miles an hour down the highway and having him pull that trick. It was horrifying. Now, he never did that again, but how I had no way of predicting that was going to happen.
Following Larry's passing, did you find it therapeutic to write your book, The Thief Came in the Night?
Having kept a journal for nearly 6 years, I had a lot of information regarding his trajectory in his traveling through dementia. And it was a year after his passing that I actually pulled that journal out and started making notes of what was of value to maybe somebody else and so on. So I did write a book. I wrote The Thief Came in the Night. I think it was very helpful to get his story out as well as mine. The book does relate a lot of the angst that I went through, the challenges that he went through, but ends up being a love story. And I think that trying to maintain that loving relationship with whomever you're caring for is so important. This disease is very difficult, and you can become angry at the person with the disease. We have to remember to blame the disease, not the person. When they are saying over and over again, "What time is it?" 2:15. "What time is it?" 2:15. "What time is it?" 2:15. "I told you it's 2:15. By the time you get that 6, 10, or 12 times, you get frustrated. But what does their brain tell them? They don't know what time it is. They can't remember what time it is. And they ask you, and you give your response again and again and again, and you get agitated and so on. We need to back up, take a deep breath, count to 10, and say, "Honey, it's 2:15.
Madeleine Fraley facilitates 2 support groups and is the author of 3 books, including The Thief Came in the Night, which describes some of her journey through dementia caregiving. Rounds describes the early days of her medical surgical training as a physician's associate before PAs were recognized as a critical part of the healthcare team. Magnificence, A Mustang Tale, is told by their 1967 Ford Mustang. They are available on Amazon.com in paperback and ebook.